What a long, strange trip it's been. A little over a year ago, I got on this channel to talk about the news headlines, to take down the temperature. I said for the whole world, but I really meant for myself because there's a certain message, there's a certain energy that the news wants to give us. They want us to march in someone's parade and go down fighting for someone else's battle, to become activists for certain things. And I wanted to take a step back, look at the context of what was really going on. I also wanted to redevelop myself as a broadcaster because I used to be one in a past life. So I chose the Drudge Report, and I chose the Drudge Report just because I thought it would be, well, counter programming, because the great mass of the U.S. media that looks at U.S. politics in particular, very much, I would almost say, works for the Democratic Party, works to push forward one narrative. Uh, there is one exception to that, Fox News, which is so right wing and absurd. You just kind of count that out. And I think many people I know on the right or the left, you just cannot even consider Fox News. So you're stuck with the rest of the news media. And so I thought, well, I'd like to generate some views. Now, if you look at my view counts, I've been clearly unsuccessful in that. But I thought to generate some views, I would pick a news outlet that was hated and controversial for being right wing, but yet it wasn't a Johnny come lately. It was a famous one, and that was the Drudge Report. And I've talked about how the Drudge Report became popular in the late 1990s, or it became significant or infamous because it forced the news media, which had collectively decided not to report on President Clinton's scandals. It forced them to consider some aspects of President Clinton's behavior. And it proved that this new thing at the time called the internet could be important for news media. It wasn't just confined to the real broadcast news media. So I picked Drudge Report, and Drudge Report over the years has been denigrated for being right wing, particularly in 2016, where it was thought of or seen as being a little soft on Trump, because Trump was very far outside of this moral, upstanding concept that the Republican Party always kept to itself, kind of very often sneering down its nose at the little picadillos of other candidates. Family values sort of thing. Alexa, stop. And so I chose that, and in 2016, it was considered to be a little soft on Trump, and 2020, apparently they went a little harder on Trump, but this year they've really ramped up kind of the anti-Trump rhetoric right along with the mainstream media in the United States, and this is the same aspect. I spend a lot of time overseas doing various things. And when I talk to people overseas, they get a smattering of what's happening in the United States. Sometimes the United States news dominates the international news. And of course, it's always very, very highly negative towards the Republicans. This goes all the way back to the George W. Bush administration. And I've told this story before, where after Bush was elected for the second time, uh, people I knew were absolutely stunned because they had this message through the media that he was a war criminal, he was going to be pulled before the Hague, he was a clown, and they were shocked that not only that he could win the election, who would have voted for him, but it does show how there's such an overwhelming message that for one party over the other, that people can maybe not have the proper idea of what's really going on. So Anyway, in the last year, I was hoping for some controversial softball news stories about Trump, or just things I could talk about because I knew most of the media would be negative towards Trump. But Drudge hasn't really delivered for me. It's been extremely um, anti Trump day after day, especially down to these last few weeks here, right before the election, which is this Tuesday. Excuse me. So, these kind of old-fashioned yellow journalism ways that the Drudge Report spins these articles, they're not only so, something from. Hold on one second. Sorry, I live in a desert of no relationships, no contact. Nobody ever calls me except in the very few times I'm doing a show like this. And everybody I know who I've ever known is calling me, texting me, messaging me, and even the Alexa goes off. But so what I was saying, I think, was this sort of sensational headline that emulates the yellow journalism of the past. You know, there's we get to a point where we have to learn how to read these very, very partisan articles, um, and that tell you what Trump says, what Trump said, without actually qu- showing you the quote until you're way down in the article. And this is one. Okay, so wow, Trump is talking about reporters being shot. Well, you, you know that the first few paragraphs will be not only telling you that this was said without the quote, there will also be the denunciations, often quotes from other people. And this is before they ever tell you exactly what was said. And if anybody grew up in the old high school journalism or college journalism, or you learned journalism, you know that the the critical information of this incendiary quote needs to be right up at the top, not after a lot of other material. If it's after a lot of other denunciations and conceptualizations of what was saying, it becomes an editorial, becomes a commentary, this sort of thing. And these articles, they never say editorial or commentary or analysis. They're just the news. Um, so we already at the very beginning of these articles, not only do they not tell you what was actually said, but they have the denunciation of it from the other candidate, the hopeful message from Kamala Harris. And then something about what she was doing. She was in a church and she's talking about faith, um, and then denunciation, uh, going down. So we go all the way down through this article without anything about Trump musing about being shot. Where's the quote? We need to see the quote of this. We jump over this little break here. Um, Keeping going, talking about other things he said as criticism. Finally, here we're down here, and he says something about all we have over here is fake news, and to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news, and I don't mind that so much. You know, there's no doubt that these comments are silly. They're beneath the dignity of a former president to say. They're stupid for a candidate to say. Um, but here we have to go all the way down here to say muses about reporters being shot. It doesn't exactly say. You could say, yeah, maybe it's implied, kind of. They do have a clarification here saying, well, of course he didn't say that. Um, and then they have other denunciations from other people kind of hung on this. Not really clear. It's certainly not as clear as the headline would tell you it would be. And you got a question, as in all these articles, we got to look for this quote first. Now, whose fault is this ultimately? Well, it's Trump's fault, because even if he just didn't mean anything by it, and I don't really think he did, he and his supporters would be the first people to tell you that the media is after him, and they certainly are. And I'm not supporting Trump, but we do have to recognize this syndrome in the media. And this, I didn't get to do the show as quickly as I wanted to, but a couple days ago, Trump was pushing this article, which was widely reported that he wanted to have Cheney executed. Now, he may want to, and knowing the kind of person he is and the ways he thinks, he might, but certainly what he said was, again, taken way out of context by the media, and you have to go down far down into these articles before you can get the actual context of what was being said. And as usual, and I've noticed this particularly during this campaign, the BBC, now I know all my British friends would say that the BBC is all liberal and woke, but there's certainly a breath of fresh air when you're looking at U.S. political news. And here they have the quote in context that it wasn't just calling for his execution as was widely reported. It was in the context of her being a war hawk and trying to show a difference between his policies and not starting more foreign wars and kind of the establishment Democrat Party and Republican Party world police view that the United States takes. So the lesson here, I think there's two lessons. One is we've got to look for the real quote in these articles, because the media is purposely misinterpreting that, and I think there's no question about that. And then ultimately, again, it's the fault of Trump. They know that this is going to happen. It happens again and again, but well, Trump is not a polished speaking politician. And, you know, the point could be made that may be in his favor, that maybe they don't want the careful talking of Hillary Clinton. But a lot of quotes being used against him. So where are we on the election? If you looked at most of the news media, it would seem like Trump's a fool, he's a clown, he's a criminal, he's going to jail. That's the message we hear over and over again and again. But it's awfully, awfully close. It's very, very close. This page has all changed since I had it all queued up here. Let's go to another one. So in the polls, it's close. They're all like within 1 percentage point, which is, I think, well within the margin of error. Here we have the individual polls. I don't know if you can see it, but see, we have here's Harris by 1, Trump by 2, a bunch by Trump. And of course, you know, these sort of national polls of all the voting, they don't really matter. What matters are the state by state, because we have the electoral system in the United States. Whichever candidate gets one more vote than the other in that state, that candidate gets all the electoral votes. So most of the U.S. states are spoken for at this point. Like we know, like maybe California and New York, they're going to go for Harris. So there's just a few battleground states. Here's another. Here's a Guardian, certainly a left-leaning publication in the UK. This couldn't be closer. And here's the reason it couldn't be closer. it's thought that the Republicans are underpolled, meaning that there's such an overwhelming public discourse that's put forward. I don't know if I'm now I'm word salading here. Uh, uh, people, Donald Trump is so demonized in the media that it's thought that many people would not want to participate in a poll or would not honestly express their opinions in a poll, and that leads to the idea that there's a kind of a ghost percentage of people who are going to vote for Trump. So if you look at these kind of numbers, 48 to 47, you might add on a little for Trump, which makes it at the very least a dead heat. So we have these ghost voters who would come out. We remember back in 2016, where all the polls showed like 85% chance of Hillary Clinton winning, and Trump's candidacy was never seen as anything but a joke. But he had a huge mass of people, a quiet majority of people who ran out and voted for him. And of course, in that election, I believe he did not win by the popular vote. He won by the electoral votes because of the system I described. So, but that's why we go to this. Who's winning the state polls? This is what matters. These are, I believe, all the expected battleground states, the states that are very close, that are up for grabs. So we've got most of them going for Trump. And, there was much made in the media that you watch where the money's going. And apparently the Harris campaign stopped campaigning in North Carolina. They pulled out further ads there. Apparently, which would indicate maybe they're giving that up for Trump. Could be other reasons. And here we see in the last few days, there have been a lot of campaigning in Michigan and Wisconsin, both states that are up for grabs. These are both states that Trump did well in the past with his message to bring back jobs to the United States, to stop giving jobs to really our adversary, if not enemy, China, with all the rhetoric and the things that they've been doing. And we've seen in the past, 10 years, tariffs come roaring back into the United States after many years of the Republicans championing them along with the international agreements, and the Democrats following along with that. And now things have flipped back the other way. So these are some of these Rust Belt states, perhaps you would say. Michigan, Pennsylvania is one. They used to have great jobs, the big industries where a man could work and his wife could stay at home taking care of the family, and you'd have enough for health care and to buy a house. Well, no more, and all those jobs are gone. They're being done in other countries that are really openly challenging us and attacking our allies. And they're authoritarian countries. Now, I've talked about this in the past, but there were good reasons to have free trade, in that if we help develop free trade and connections with international agreements, we would help develop a middle class in countries. We would, and that would create political change naturally. And it did in a lot of countries. And, the world is knit together in a way that during the Cold War we couldn't even imagine. However, this concept of free trade didn't seem to work for some bigger countries like China, like Russia. China just has increased their authoritarian control of the party while developing a rich middle class. openly, they've essentially been on and off at war with our allies in the South China Seas, such as the Philippines. They've made countries in the region almost client states, such as Cambodia, all under their authoritarian thumb. And they seem very proud of it. So, for various reasons, uh, it didn't work. Free trade, sending all those jobs over, importing all of the stuff from China, did not work for that. Didn't work for Russia either. So I don't know there may be something to do with the scale, with larger countries as opposed to smaller countries. Um, so anyway, that's a diversion. So we have these states that are in play. Um, and again, we have to look at this in that it's thought that Republicans or Trump supporters poll a little lower than expected. So if you're a Harris supporter, this is very worrisome. It's going to be a razor's edge election, certainly for sure. And my final thought about this year, this crazy election year, is stay off of Twitter. Twitter is insane. Um, and I'll tell you, in the 80s, in my formative years, I read a book called Why Are They Lying to Our Children? And that it's a conservative book. That was the 80s was the very peak of kind of Republican right-leaning conservative. Everybody was a yuppie. Everybody was making money. Everybody was for capitalism. There didn't seem to be anybody, even if you didn't like Reagan, there weren't really any good alternatives to him that could win or that could talk about any path forward for the nation. And in that book, Why Are They Lying to Our Children? It was all about how the liberals are always lying to everybody, and it's all about fear mongering, and the Republicans are just telling it like it is, and this sort of thing. Probably not all true. Obviously these are very broad generalizations. But I think today we've come into an era where it's the Republicans who are lying to people about things. And that, Twitter is just filled with conspiracy theories, not even new ones that are debunked, where you can spend 2 seconds looking on the internet and say, this photo was doctored, this is obviously not true. People just want to believe it. And I do think a lot of people maybe on Twitter, when they like these conspiracy theories, that they know they're not true, and they just want to stick the thumb in the eye of other people who get upset about it, kind of trolling. But I really feel bad that any party leans into false conspiracy theories, crazy over the top stuff. It just leads to polarization. And what I always tried to do here on this channel was to bring back some context and a little bit of sanity and calmness, and try to look at things with fresh, clear, honest eyes at what's happening in the country. And you're not going to find that on Twitter. I don't know where you'll find it. I do my best here, but as we go into the elections, the message is, I don't think there's been a big October surprise, other maybe than Biden saying what did he say about the supporters of Trump? They're garbage. You see, this recalls in 2016 when Hillary Clinton said about the deplorables. It's a slip of the tongue. You may really feel that, but when you're in the last heady days of the election cycle, those can be used to great effect, apparently. So things are super, super close. They're on a razor's edge. If you're outside the United States and you've only heard the points about how Trump is a clown, he could very well win. And right now, it's too close to call. So that's been the election. We'll see what happens, and we'll I'll follow up. Maybe I'll have a stream on the election day. I'm not sure. Uh, I hate getting caught up in all of the rhetoric and the excitement of the moment. I always like to have a, a time to step back and look at things. So that may be my problem. I should have more controversy and I could have had more views. But for anybody who liked and subscribed or who got something out of these videos over the past years, that really thrills me. And I thank you so much for being a part of this and listening to my words, as imperfect as they are. So I will see you next time, and hang in there. Don't get overexcited. Don't heed the call to march in someone's parade and go down with a sinking ship or fighting in someone else's battle. That's my message, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.